Hi friends, it is Wednesday evening, late at the infinite, and this is the first time I am doing anything like this. Usually I speak to people, humans, interact with other human beings, but we are in a virtual world, so we are gonna make the best of it, and best of it will go well. We'll learn together. So I wanted to start with a exercise activity, if you want to call it, from Rabbi Kaplan, and I wanted you to point to yourself, whatever that means to you. Point to yourself. So most of you, if I had to guess, I can't see anybody, but most of you would have pointed to your heart. This is me. And I want to ask you, what if, God forbid, Chas Shalom, your heart wasn't working the way it needed to, and you needed to have heart surgery or heart transplant, and Baruch Hashem, they found the donor, and you now have someone else's heart beating inside of you, and everything is working well, and you're living, and it's great. Would you still point to yourself? Probably not. Even though you are alive and you're functioning and you're doing everything that you need to do physically, someone else's heart is beating inside of you. So you won't point to your heart. So maybe, let's say you would point to your brain, like the Bat-Chen says, we are where our thoughts are. But what happens if, again, God forbid, you are in a car accident or some other accident, or you're older and you have memory complications or whatever, and your brain is not what it used to be, or it's not all that it could be? Would you still point to your brain and say, this is me? Probably not. So if we're not our heart and we're not our brain, maybe we are another body part, a finger, a leg, an arm, something. But the truth is, if we had to have that body part amputated, we would still be us. So in the end of the day, we're not our heart, we're not our brain, we're not our finger, our thumb, or whatever. Who are we? In Judaism calls that the soul. We are neshama, a soul. What is the soul? So we'll talk about tonight human potential, and some ideas around human potential, who we are as human beings, and then tie that into Hanukkah and how we can use Hanukkah to help us actualize our inherent inner potentials. So Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary divides potential in 3 ways. Either potential is the existing possibility, for example, the potential for goodness, or it's expressing possibility, such as the potential for rain, or something that can be developed or become actualized. The potential for danger. It's not right now, but it could be dangerous later on. Aristotle, one of the founding fathers of Greek philosophy, stood up Plato, perhaps one of the most well-known philosophers, told us that potential is to transform ourselves into all that we could be. So if we are supposed to be this, or we're supposed to be that, or whatever it is that we are supposed to be in life, potential is when we become that thing that we are supposed to be. So maybe we could say that potential is a result of our parents, or our community, or our friends, or our school, and so many different outside external voices and influences and individuals shape who we become as we develop. And it's all very nice, because in the world of psychology, we do know that identity is also based on external influences. That who our parents are, who our siblings are, who our friends, our community, our school, they all contribute to who we grow up to be. We know that's true. But what happens if potential was something different? What if it was something else? What if potential did not have a beginning, but rather was a journey that developed over time? And perhaps with the reasons why potential is so complex, or people avoid it, or it's misunderstood, is because essentially potential is the unknown. It's that courage to live with the unknown. What we can't define. It's a part of ourselves that we don't know existed yet. That we can't see, we can't realize. And unlike a skill, potential lies within us, within each of us. It's waiting to be actualized as you develop over time. And the thing about potential is that it's unique to each of us. That if we try and, actualize someone else's potential, or someone else tries to actualize our potential, we do a disservice to ourselves, or someone else does a disservice to them. Because we each have our own potential, and trying to be someone else, or trying to work towards someone else's potential, means that we are becoming, or trying to become, that person. And we are neglecting to be our own self. So potential is asking who I am, and not what my circumstances are. Who are we right now, beneath all those external voices and expectations and pressures from everyone else around us? I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, if you're comfortable, and envision your ideal self. Who are you when no one is looking? When you are your fullest, idealist, most authentic self. Who are you? Where are you? Who is in your life? Take a second to visualize that. And once you've visualized who you are, who you truly can or want to become, who do you want to be, and who do you want to be, regardless of all those voices that tell you otherwise. Tell you who you should become, or what you can or cannot do. And what choices do you need to make as an individual to manifest that person, to be that human being? What choices do you need to make today to live out your potential? Tomorrow, the next day, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. That's potential. And let's get into a little bit of the Yiddishkeit, the spirituality. That if I were to ask you, imagine we are standing in Mount Sinai, 3,300 something years ago, and God is giving the Torah for the first time. Now, obviously, the first mitzvah in that Torah is going to be the most important one, right? The first thing always sets the tone, sets the stage for everything else to come. The introduction to a story, a novel, engages individuals reading that novel, either to close its page or continue reading. So what would we think would be the first mitzvah that God gives Jewish people, us? So perhaps you would say Shabbos. Bearing new faith in Israel, Yisrael, Shabbos is an eternal sign between us and God. Right? As they famously say, the more Jews have kept Shabbos, the more Shabbos has kept the Jews. But it's not Shabbos. So perhaps you could say that the first mitzvah should be Talmud Torah, learning Torah, doing the mitzvahs, right? Because if there's no Jewish education, there's no Jewish continuity. If we don't educate our children and teach them the values and the morals and ideals of Judaism, they won't know what it means to be a Jew. And they won't want to live that Yiddishkeit for themselves and teach that to their children. But the first mitzvah is not Talmud Torah. It's not learning Torah. So what is it? It's Birchas HaChodesh, sanctifying or blessing the new month, and thereby establishing the Jewish calendar according to the cycle of the moon. Why? And so then the Simcha Chaim, the previous Latin Rabbi, gives a beautiful answer to this question. And he's discussing just a little bit background about the Simcha Chaim, that he was Shalom Nayach Berzowski from the town of Bernovich. And the interesting thing about the Simcha Chaim is that he brings a Lithuanian approach to learning Torah, which is very analytical, very clear-cut, very methodical, and he infuses that with the Hasidic style of learning, which is very lofty and spiritual. He brought the two together. And he emigrated to Erez, land of Israel, in 1935. Moved to Tel Aviv to start off. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Lubavitcher Yeshiva in Tel Aviv. And from there he moved to Yerushalayim. In 1941 opened the Slonmer Yeshiva of Yerushalayim. And he teaches a very fascinating idea about the events of Hanukkah. And we know that the Yavanim, the Greeks, initially forbade the Jewish people from celebrating the three mitzvahs: Shabbos, Bris Milah, and Rosh Chodesh. And he offers an answer to why Rosh Chodesh, why the new moon, why do we establish a calendar according to the waxing and waning of the new moon. And he teaches that the Jewish people count their calendar according to the new moon because it symbolizes us as a people that we are constantly changing. That one day everything is amazing and we are thriving as people, and then the next day is the total opposite. That there's persecution, anti-Semitism, and hatred. And just as the moon goes in cycles and it waxes and wanes and it's bigger and smaller, so too as the people do we wax and wane. And then we're constantly growing, and some days we are not our greatest self, and it's difficult, and there's trauma and pain. And other days we are thriving, and it's really, we are living our fullest selves, both as individuals and as people. That the essence of Yiddishkeit is to be continuously changing and evolving, just like the moon. Just like when we think it's game over, we think that we're done as a people, we experience a rebirth, a revival, a miracle. And just when we get comfortable in who we are, or get comfortable as a people living in a particular place, we change again. That we grow again, we evolve again. We experience some type of discomfort, some darkness, and from that darkness we grow up again. Nothing in Judaism or in life is stagnant, nor should it be. So that's the Simcha Chaim, and when I move to the President of Reb Noson of Nemrov, is the primary disciple of the Rabbi Nachman. Then he also gives the answer to why the Jewish people establish a calendar according to the waxing and the waning of the moon. And he teaches that this represents that the moon represents the oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh. And anytime Chazal, our sages, were learning Torah, their holiness was that they minimized or diminished or put aside all the Torah that they knew to learn that piece of Torah for the first time. And this is the idea of the sun versus moon, that the sun is clarity, it's consistency, and consistency is what we know, what we think we understand. And We know that as the Torah speaks of the written Torah, where everything is laid out exactly for us, neatly and clearly, what to do and what not to do. And anyone who has learned Gemara, Talmud, Mishnayos, the oral Torah is not clear cut. There's continuous arguments between sages of what's the proper way, what's the exact halacha that we should be learning or be doing. And that is the idea of novelty, innovation, the unknown, renewal. That because we don't know it's so clear cut, it could be anything. And the idea of of holiness in Judaism is that we could do the same thing day after day, week after week, year after year. And even though we've heard the ideas so many times, or we've seen the stories, or we've seen this, or we've done that, we can always see it as a totally different way, or see it in a new way, or learn something new, or go deeper than how we first understood it the first time. And that is how we not only survive as a people, but also how we survive as individuals. There's so much of Judaism, it seems to be repetitive. We daven 3 times a day, the same Shemoneh Esrei. We have Shabbos every week, the same Shabbos. The festive cycle is always the same. There's Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot and Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. Every year is the same thing. The Parsha, every week we read the same Parsha, the same Torah cycle every year. But just because we've done it so many times, we've seen it so many times, doesn't mean that today or this time could be different. And the tzaddikim, the righteous, holy individuals, were able to push aside what they knew, make it as if they didn't know anything, to absorb and process that piece of Torah for the first time. And that's really why we as people, as a Jewish nation, count our calendars according to the moon. That no matter what happened yesterday, no matter who we were, no matter how we did, today we could be different. Today is a new opportunity. I guess so much of the fear or the anxiety or the concern or whatever other discomfort that we have with the idea of growth or potential or self-discovery or self-help is that because we don't know exactly who we are, we could be anyone, we could be anything, that we're not confined to the rising and the setting of the sun. We're not confined to be the same person we always were, to do the same things we've always done them because that's the way we've always done them. That we should be evolving, we should be challenging, we should be rethinking what we know, how we know, who we are, and in that doing, who we can become. That tomorrow can't be actually totally different than what today is. So let's get to Hanukkah, which is in 10 or so, 15 days, about 2 weeks from now. So the story of Hanukkah, in and of itself, it seems very old, and it seems like any other. Seems like it's no different than any other Jewish story. They hated us. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. Right? And the way that so we know that the Jewish people at the time in Israel were few in number. We were a very small group, and we stood up for our Jewish values. And we waged war against the Syrian Greek army, who forbade us from living full Jewish lives. And many people are, I'm sure familiar with the Yom Tov of Purim. And Purim and Hanukkah are polar opposites. That Purim, our Haman wanted to destroy us physically. He wanted to annihilate every single Jewish man, woman, and child. Hanukkah, at least to begin with. The Syrian Greeks did not want to annihilate us. They wanted to assimilate us. That we should become Hellenized. And the way that the Gemara outlines the story is that on the 25th of the month of Kislev, when the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils, and they trashed the place. And then we came in, the Chashmonaim came into the base of Mikdash, the holy temple, and they overcame the Greeks. They purified the temple, they cleaned it up, sanctified it. They lit the menorah. Sorry, they found oil, a small amount, just enough for one day, and they lit the menorah, the light in the holy temple. And even though that light was supposed to last for one day, it lasted for 8. And the following year, they established that anniversary to be a Yom Tov, a holiday of Hanukkah, of thanksgiving and praise. That's the basic story of Hanukkah. And to understand the significance of Hanukkah, we need to first understand a different story. Not necessarily a historical one, but a Hasidic story. And this is the story from Avraham Malach. He was the study partner of the Bat-Chen, the Alter Rebbe. And one day Rabbi Avraham was playing hide and seek with his friends. And if you hide and seek, you hide and then your friends find you, or your friends hide and you find them. So he was playing with his friends one day, and it was his turn to hide. And he hit himself really, really well. And, 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass, 20, 15 minutes, and it's quiet. So Rabbi Avraham comes out of his hiding place to surprise his friends and to claim his prize. And as soon as he gets out of his hiding place, he sees that his friends he's forgot about him, that they are, they're playing other games. They've moved on from hide and seek. And he starts running into he starts crying, and he runs into his father's house, or father's study room. He says, touch, something horrible happens. I was playing hide and seek with my friends, and it was my turn to hide. I hid myself so well, and no one could find me. And his father explained to him that really that is the story of us and God, Jewish people throughout history. That the first human beings, Adam and Chava, were in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. And they did something that they were not supposed to do. They ate the fruit of the tree that they were not supposed to eat at that time. And they were ashamed and embarrassed, so they hid themselves. And then, again, Cain and Hevel did something that they were not supposed to do, and they hid themselves again. Time and again, we were hiding ourselves, whether from shame, embarrassment, or because we didn't want to deal with God or have a relationship with God. So we hid. And then it became God's turn to hide. Right? Because that became his responsible. That, one person hides and the next person hides. So it was God's turn to hide. And sadly, God hid himself so well that over the years we stopped looking for him. And we now, people are slowly coming back to their spirituality. They're reconnecting to their true spiritual core. But in many ways, God is still hiding within the darkness of exile. If we think about the story of Avraham Malach in a broader sense, we are all hiding in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes hiding is a good thing. We all have our vulnerabilities. We all have our safe spaces that we need to protect, and we cannot give our fullest vulnerable self to everyone. Right? We're not the same person we are at home as we are in the office, or on the street, or in the train, or wherever we are. We protect ourselves. We have defense mechanisms that we put on to embrace the world around us, outside of us. So sometimes hiding is a good thing. But many of us hide ourselves too frequently. That we cover up who we truthfully are beneath the surface. Whether that's because we don't think we are worthy, or we are ashamed of who we are embarrassed, or whatever the reason is, we are hiding. Each of us in our own way. So question one for you is, what's one thing that you might be hiding? Sorry, what's one thing that you might be too open about that maybe you should hide better? And the second question is, what's one thing that you're currently hiding that you may want to share with others? Alright, so moving on slightly, that we always read the story of Yehuda and Tamar, Judah and Tamar, around the time of Hanukkah. Usually a week or so leading up to Hanukkah. And I want to look at this story because we know that the parsha that we read around the Yom Tov time sheds a lot of light onto that Yom Tov. And the story of Yehuda and Tamar is very strange, and it really does not make that much sense at the onset. More so, why do we read this story now? Right, we're reading about Joseph and his brothers Joseph and the multicolored dream code and the dreams and Egypt and all this, the drama between Joseph and his brothers. And still in the middle of that Joseph story is Yehuda and Tamar. I want to spend some time together understanding what this story teaches us, and what's doing here, and how can we connect it to Hanukkah. So to summarize, and those that want to look up the story can do so in Book of Genesis, the Safar Bridges. So in summary, Tamar is widowed by Judah's two sons. She dresses her harlot and has relations with her father-in-law Yehuda. Before they engage in this act, she asks for his ring, his coat, his shirt, and his staff as collateral in lieu of payment. So Yehuda says, I will pay you after this whole experience of prostitution. And she says, before we do this, I want collateral. So he leaves her with these items, his ring, his shirt, and his staff. 3 months pass, and Yehuda is informed by some random person, that his daughter-in-law Tamar is pregnant through harlotry. And not knowing that he was the cause for this, Yehuda sends Tamar out to be burned. And just as she's supposed to be executed, she reveals the items of the man who she had this relationship with. Yehuda recognizes his own items, and realizes that, oh my gosh, I was the cause for this. And he makes amends, and everything is good again. He takes ownership for what he does. And Tamar ends up giving birth to twins, one of whom becomes the ancestor for the Mashiach, the Messiah. And to understand this, we need to realize that beyond the balance of need to hide and reveal ourselves, there's a part of us that always remains constant. That there's a spark of God within us, buried deep within us, that never changes despite what external behaviors we might exhibit at the time. that, no matter what is going on outside of us, mostly that we cannot control, or even when we behave in ways that are not, befitting to who we are, there's a piece of us, a part of us that's always the same. They never changes. We have two ideas to support this. That one is in, famous statement in Book of Genesis, if Bereshit, chapter 2, that Hashem God formed humankind from the dust of the earth and breathed into its nostrils the breath of life, and the human became a living thing. With this idea that we are created, each of us are created in the image and the likeness of God. And when God breathed into us the breath of life, He gave us this image, this likeness. And therefore each of us is individually special because we have this piece of God, or we have this image or likeness of the divine. But the Bat-Chen thought the Rabbi takes this one step further. In the second chapter of Chana, he explains that when someone blows into something or someone, when we blow, we first breathe in, and then we blow out through that innermost aspect of who we are. That we're not just created in God's image and likeness, which is what the Torah tells us, but that we are an actual piece of God Himself. A literal piece of God. Why? Because when God breathed into us, He did so from the innermost aspect, so to speak, of Himself. And from that innerness, He breathed into our nose. But as we develop through life, we all grow up, we develop different ways. We go through many changes. Physical changes, biological changes, psychological changes, emotional changes. And it's very healthy. We should be changing as you develop. Sometimes our external behaviors don't always match this internal core. And like the hide and seek story we said it before, of the Melech, sometimes our neshama, our soul, is hidden so well that nobody can find us or see us, not even ourselves. Sometimes we don't even realize our innerness because it's so hidden and buried within us that we just assume that we are another body like everybody else. And as much as everyone else around us likes to define us for what they see on the surface, like the sun, we are undefinable because of this infinity with which we were created. And just like the moon constantly changes, one day it's big, one day it's small, one day it's almost nothing, and the other day it's ginormous, so too can we not always be seen. Just like the moon's light cannot always be seen, so too can we, our holiness, our innerness cannot always be seen or sensed. And because we are created with this piece, this literal piece of God, and God's infinite and undefinable, so too are we, so to speak in human terms, infinitely undefinable as well. So going back to the initial question I asked, what does this incident of Yehuda and Tamar have to do with Chanukah? Why do we read it now? Why don't we read it later on, some other time? And to answer this question, I want to learn together a piece from the Bat-Chen, from Dofer of Average. And who was this guy? Who was Rabbi? He was the average Rabbi. He was a student of Chernobyl and Brunschwig. He was a Rabbi in Eastern Europe for 40 or so years. And then for the last 10 years of his life, he immigrated to the Holy Land, Safar, and interestingly, he had the Safar Bat-Chen, which he supposedly wrote in Europe, but he wouldn't allow anyone to publish it until he was able to breathe the air of Erez, the Holy Land. And once he was in the Holy Land in Safar, he allowed for his book, his Safar, and his teachings to be published broadly. And he really tears apart this whole Yehuda and Tamar story. And I get to summarize it because I don't want to go through the whole piece. So Yehuda accuses Tamar of being inappropriate, right? And so someone comes to Yehuda and says, your daughter-in-law Tamar was inappropriate, and deal with it, right? Do something about it. And Yehuda orders that she is sent out to be executed. And this happens 3 months after the incident, right? Yehuda and Tamar get together, they do lots of whatever they do together, and then they go their separate ways. And 3 months pass, which is really the time that a woman is starting to show her pregnancy, and someone comes to Yehuda and says, your daughter-in-law did this horrible thing. 3 months after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Tishrei and Sukkot and all that amazing inspiration and empowerment and passion that we have in Tishrei, 3 months pass. Comes Hanukkah. And there's no Yom Tovim, there's no holidays, no festivals. Cheshvan has no holidays at all. And Hanukkah is not until the end of Kislev. So really we have approximately 3 months of nothing. And the heavenly accuser comes to God and says, listen, you see your Jewish people, look how they abandoned you. They had this Tishrei, they had all their holidays, and then after that they're back to work, back to the office, back to their everyday, mundane, daily responsibilities. So God says, okay, my people abandoned me, get rid of them. Let them be executed. And comes Hanukkah, where we light them in we take that oil, this soul, and we say to God, hey, God, the piece of you, the literal piece of you that you put inside of us, that soul, it's still there. And it's shining as brightly as it did 3 months ago. Yes, we may be involved in physical daily responsibilities, and yes, we may appear on the surface to be less connected or whatever it is, but we are still here. We didn't abandon the relationship just because you couldn't see that externally. We're still here. We still believe in what we had, even though our externals may not, match on the outside who we are internally. And from here, I want to go to a story from a story of the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Yehuda Avner. I forget the year that the story happened, but Yehuda Avner was the ambassador and advisor for 5 of Israel's prime ministers. And he wrote a book of his experiences with, each of the 5 prime ministers. And in his pages, he shares a story of a encounter, a private meeting he had with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And Yehuda Avner asks the Rebbe, what is your job as a Rebbe? What is your job as a spiritual leader? And the Rebbe explains to him, imagine you're looking at a candle. What you're really seeing is a mere lump of wax with a thread down the middle. So when does that thread and the lump of wax become a candle? Or in other words, when do they fulfill the purpose for which they were created? When you put a flame to that thread. And then the wax and the thread become a candle. When there's a bridge between the wick and the lump of wax, when they're connected, that's their purpose, to be a flame. The wax is our body, and the wick is our soul. And each of them are separate, so to speak. But when that flame of Torah when that flame of Torah comes to the soul, then the body will fulfill the purpose for which it was created. That when there is a healthy balance, a healthy bridge between body and soul, spirituality and physicality, that's our purpose. Beautiful Scribe, but what does it mean for us? That each of us represents a candle. We each have a body, a lump of wax, and we each have a wick, we have a soul. And neither are useful unless they are joined by our bodies are not useful unless they are joined by that wick. And when there's a bridge between our spirituality and our physicality, then we should not be to either extreme. We should not be only physical or only spiritual. Both extremes are not healthy, but there has to be a bridge between them. We need to have a bridge between our ideal self and the behaviors that we exhibit or may engage in our day-to-day. And there has to be a channel between who we are and who the outside world perceives us to be. Remember, the outside world can't always see our soul. So all they really see is our body, our external manifestation of that internal soul, which may or may not always be in sync. And we each have a jug of pure olive oil buried within us, still bearing the seal of the high priest Kohen Gadol in the times of the Holy Temple. That our soul is still bearing that seal, so to speak, of the Kohen Gadol of God. That hasn't changed. And on Hanukkah, we tap into this ideal, authentic self. We reconnect with who we truly are beneath all those external manifestations that we engage with every day. So there's another question. We know halachically that the Jewish people could have used any oil to light the menorah. And pure olive oil was a whole process in and of itself to make. So when we went back into the Beis Hamikdash after the war, after we defeated the Greeks, when the Hashmonaim went back into the Beis Hamikdash to clean it up, why did they spend so much effort and time and energy in making or finding pure olive oil? Why couldn't they just make any oil, take any oil that they had, and use that to light the menorah? If the goal is to shine light over darkness, a lot of people like to say Hanukkah is a celebration of light over darkness. If that's the goal, why not just use any means to achieve that goal? Why not use any oil? To this, the Baptist Rabbi gets an answer. He teaches something which I'm going to use to answer this question. That we said at the beginning that Purim is the annihilation of physical individuals and Hanukkah is his spiritual annihilation, the assimilation. So if we are to win that spiritual war, the spiritual war between the Greek ideology of Hellenism and the Jewish ideology of Yiddishkeit, if we are to win that spiritual war, we need to engage in the act of self-sacrifice. We need to stand firmly against all obstacles. which is an inherent strength and completely transcend intellect. That when we like to think that we analyze and we cross-analyze it, we make plans and we prepare for how to achieve or conquer whatever we want to. And we need to plan, that's good. But when there's a threat, an immediate threat, and our life is on the line, we don't plan. Survival instinct kicks in, and we just do. And, imagine very drastically or extremely, a loved one is about to be, murdered or something horrible, right? You're not gonna think, am I wearing the appropriate outfit? Do I look okay? Is it safe? Is it not safe? Is it a good time? Who can help me? All this stuff, you're not gonna think about that. You're just gonna save your loved one's life. Or God forbid someone is holding the gun to our head. We're not gonna analyze about this or that. We're just gonna get rid of the threat. And that transcends our intellect. Meaning that there is a point within us that is transcendent of any cognitive reasoning or assessment. And this soul, this neshama, this potential that we have, it's not intellectual. Because we can't always see it, we can't always experience it externally. Can't always be noticed, even by us ourselves. It's not always rational, it's a piece of us, it can't become tarnished. Because regardless of how we might behave externally, then no matter what we may be engaging in, good or the opposite, this neshama, this soul that we have, this potential, this inherent goodness or self-worth can never be tarnished. And that's not a rational, logical deduction. Right? Logic will tell us you screwed up, there's consequence. You did the wrong thing, pay the price. But when we talk about neshama, we talk about soul, we talk about inherent, inner worth, inner goodness, that's always there. That never changes. And the goal of Hanukkah is not just to shine any light. The goal is to shine our individual light. For 8 days, we are each a high priest, so to speak. And we're kindling the lights of the menorah in the base of Mikdash, in our own homes. So each week we light 2 Shabbos candles. And by doing so, we illuminate, we bring sanctity and serenity to our inner immediate families. Whoever's in our home for Shabbos gets to experience the light of Shabbos. And it's beautiful. But for 8 days, we tap into this transcendental, unconfined light that we use to illuminate the entire world. And we each have this light inside of us, we are each worthy of shining that light. Despite how dark it might be outside, or how distant we may feel that we are from godliness, from spirituality, from our ideal selves, regardless of all that, we are each worthy of shining our light. And adding our light to that collective light. And together, when we each shine our light, when we each shine our individual lights, we collectively illuminate the entire world. So what is the real miracle of Hanukkah? You'll be saying Al Nisim. It is the war against the Greek army, the Syrian Greek army, that we were few in number and they were large. We were weak and they were strong. Or we say that the miracle, the nes of Hanukkah, was the oil lasting longer than it was supposed to. But there's a very surface reading of the Hanukkah story. the real miracle of Hanukkah is that we had the courage to kindle the menorah from the onset. That year after year, we continue to rekindle that menorah in our homes, despite how long this godless exile is taking. Even when our rational mind tells us that we'll never make it out of exile, or that we're unworthy, or that we've been bad Jews, or bad human beings, we tap into this super rational essence, this neshama, this soul, and we kindle the lights anyways. How many of us think that we are unworthy of being anything more than we currently are? Or anything more than others define us, or assign that, or the roles that they assign us to be? Hanukkah celebrates the idea, the miracle, that we could be more tomorrow than we are right now. That we could be more than who we think we are on the surface, or more than our intellect or our rationale tells us that we are. So I want to kind of end with an idea from Rabbi Shlomo. He was saying Mount Sor, that from these small jugs of oil, we lit from those small jugs of oil, the miracle of Hanukkah happened. So the question is, why didn't the Syrian Greeks find their jug of oil? Right, the Syrian Greeks totally transformed the Beis HaMikdash from a Beis HaMikdash into a opposite of a Beis HaMikdash, into a Hellenized, idol-worshipping house. Why didn't they find that small jug of oil? Rabbi Shlomo explains that they did. They saw the jug of oil, but they said to themselves, don't forget, Greek philosophy is it's rational, it's logical, it's intellectual and philosophical. The Greeks, when they saw that small jug of oil, they said to themselves, hey, it's so small. What difference does it make? There's no value in that thing being so small. It has no inner worth. And for the Syrian Greeks, they couldn't appreciate that something so small could become so great. And for us, for the Yidden, for us, for Jewish people, even the smallest drop of pure olive oil could transform the entire world. How many times do we not even start something because we think that we will fail in the end? Whether that's in our personal lives or our professional lives. How many times we have doubts, and how many times we doubt our own efforts or compare them to others, or how others are doing something, whether personally or professionally. The nace of Hanukkah is a courage to kindle the lights to begin with. To say that regardless of what's happening, regardless of who I am on the outside, I am going to light the lights regardless. I'm going to bring my unique light into this universe. Regardless of how daunting the task is, or how successful or unsuccessful we will intellectually and rationally convince ourselves that we will be. So the question for you is, how many talents and abilities do we have that we keep dormant because we compare them to others? Or we think that someone else will shine brighter than we do, so therefore we don't shine at all. How many missed opportunities do we let slip by? So we each bring a unique light into this reality that nobody else can. Some of us are privileged to realize that uniqueness, and others are still discovering who they are and their uniqueness, and deciding who they are and who they want to become. Right? We're each different. stages and steps and journeys of self-realization. But at the end of the day, we are so much more. So much of who we are is buried beneath the surface that we haven't yet realized. How much more so have others realized? That the goal of the journey of potential is to continue manifesting our authentic selves and growing more and more into who we truly are and can become, and never settling for the person or the self that we know, that we think we are right now. Like the sun, but like the moon, to continuously be evolving and growing and changing each and every day. So I wanted to end with the bracha, with the blessing, that as we prepare to kindle our own menorahs in the coming days, in our own home, in our own homes, and however we celebrate Hanukkah, that we should spend time these days getting to know our own selves and our own lights, and how we can use our uniqueness to brighten up our shared reality. It should be an illuminating and joyous, freilichen, lichtigen Hanukkah, wherever you are, however you celebrate, and with whomever. I'm going to end this now, and hopefully it was inspiring. Have a great day, friends.